Welcome back to Make It Mondays, and this week I'm working on a variation of a pattern that I've had up on Etsy for a while. It's Elly's cabled bag pattern, and I'm using this yarn again. So I told you when I finished the last project with it that it would be back, and now's that time. So the cable bag is a 6-strand braid that is woven or braided together across the face of the bag. Now, for the pattern on Etsy, it is done in the round, and this time around I'm actually going to be doing it back and forth so that I can make the bag that I am making a little bit differently. So let me get everything flipped around and I'll show you how it's going. So I have gone through most of a repeat, but let's go over some of how this works. So like most of my projects, I am slipping the first stitch, and then I'm going to work across to where the cables are. So in my case, I do cables as knits and purls. So the background stitches are all purls and the actual cable portion is all knits. So I use bobby pins rather than cable needles. It is personal preference, but I do find it a lot easier, again, for me. So I took those next 2 stitches, so the next strand of the braid, I'm putting them to the back of the work, and I'm crossing them over to the front, crossing the next 2 to the front, putting the first 2 stitches back, sliding the bobby pin wherever, and then knitting those first 2 stitches. So that is a right twist, right cable. So twists and cables are a big thing within writing cable patterns. I do take a little bit of time when I actually chart these things out to make sure that everything's consistent and makes sense. But I also have a program that helps do that for me. So I make the chart, it makes the written pattern. And it predates AI, so we are not talking an AI thing. So that is pretty much one repeat of the cable. So that's kind of the basics of how cables work. I'll come back to show another row where I'm doing the knits over the purls so you can see how the cables move across that way. But for these, it was putting the stitches to the back. If I put the first stitches to the front, it would look like that cable instead. So I will be back in a bit to show you another one of the rows where I'm moving over the purls. So I've gotten across to where the twists are happening. So I'm going to take the purl stitch, move it to the back, knit the next 2 knit stitches, pulling my yarn to the front just so it doesn't get caught, putting that purl stitch back on, and then purling, picking up the 2 knit stitches, pulling to the front, purling the next 2, putting the knit stitches back on, and knitting those 2. So that was a 2 over 1 twist, a 2 over 1 right twist, and then 2 over 1 left twist. Yeah. The one upside, if you were to use an actual cable needle instead of a bobby pin, is you don't have to put the stitches back on the needle because you could just work it off the other end of the needle. As many of you know, I do knit in places that don't have the best lighting, and sometimes I have to put down a project in the middle of a row. Quite often I have to put down the project in the middle of a row. So I like ways that the stitches aren't going to come off the needles or get dropped. So that's part of why I use the bobby pins. That, and they're cheaper, so when I do inevitably lose one or forget to bring one, it's way easier to just find a bobby pin in a theater. And the reverse side of almost all cable pieces is work the stitches as they appear. So knit the knits, purl the purls. So if it looks like a purl from this side, you're purling it. If it looks like a knit on this side, you are knitting it. The way the pattern that this is inspired from is written is actually in the round, so that it would actually be always knitting the stitches that are quote on top and always purling the stitches that are quote in the background. But because this one is working back and forth, it actually flips which stitch is which. So I'm going to keep working for a bit, and I will be back when it is time to turn what looks like a scarf into a bag. So here's how the straight piece of fabric is turning into a bag. So I'm working the last stitch before the seam. This isn't a seam in a normal definition, but I slipped the last stitch over, insert into that salvage stitch on the previously worked piece, picking up a stitch, so knitting through it, and then pulling the first slip stitch over. And it's like that on both sides, just done in whatever direction is correct for that side. So I'm going to keep working like that all the way up. I am going to fold over the garter side so that when the iPad is in, I can actually just flip it over the top and have everything all contained inside the pocket. And I'll be back to show you how it looks when it's all done. And here is the finished cover. So the garter part folds over so that it's protecting the iPad all the way and it doesn't come off in transit. And it, mine also happens to have an Apple pen right there. So it actually all fits in the one little sleeve, although it really didn't look like it was going to fit as I was working. If you like this video, please consider hitting the like and subscribe. If you want to be notified, hit the notification button. I will see you next time on Make It Mondays. Bye!